The final injury report is in for Monday night. Some good, some bad for the Bears. And yes, we are going to sit here and address everything that happened yesterday with you here on this show and beyond. A special Saturday edition of CHGO Bears starts right now. Welcome into the CHGO Bears Podcast, a Saturday edition for you with Monday night creeping up. Just a little over 48 hours to go. My name, of course, is Adam Hoge. Greg Braggs joining me here on a Saturday and a lot to get to. Hello, Gregory.
Hello. How are you?
I'm all right. We are going to get into some of the stuff that happened at House today. I was there. Pat Norton was there too. We got injury updates. We got our injury report. Ben Johnson talking to the media. Ruben Hyppolite, whose role is going to increase a little bit on Monday night, it appears. But we did want to get together with you guys today, even on a Saturday afternoon, and address what happened yesterday and how this show and CHGO handled the explosive report that came out from Tyler Dunne. So just off the top, we are going to have a discussion about it. And yeah, I think there's a lot to say and a lot that we want. We're always trying to be authentic with you guys here at CHGO. And so it wouldn't be authentic to just completely ignore it, just like we're not going to ignore stories that come across too. So a couple of things just off the top I want to say. Obviously, Mark Carman, Adam Johns were on that show yesterday, just full transparency. They're not here today because they're out of town. Carm is in Boston watching his wonderful, talented niece play soccer in her first collegiate game, which is awesome. And Johns is, was in Milwaukee earlier with his son's soccer and stuff like that. Plus, beyond that, this is my responsibility to address this and take responsibility for. So you guys should be hearing it from me regardless, but just want to communicate that. First thing off the top, that does anybody who watches the show or follows us on CHGO is a diehard, isn't a diehard, whatever. The number one thing I am going to always guarantee you guys is we are going to cover stories, good or bad. We are always going to do that. Does it suck that this story came out 3 days before the first game? Yes, it does. It does. We don't want, as I said on the show yesterday, we don't want to see that either. But are we going to ignore it just because it came out 3 days before the first game? No, we're not going to do that either. That being said, there are three specific things that I want to take responsibility on my part for. And we're going to get a little bit of a deeper discussion. Greg's going to get in here too. And we're going to be fully transparent with you on. But the number one thing is we 1000% rushed into that show. And the worst part is for me is my instincts were telling me that in the moment. And I take a lot of pride in my instincts, both in terms of the instincts I feel on a day-to-day basis covering this team over the years. I feel like they are normally right, but also my instincts in content decisions that we make too. And I think if you look at our overall track record, it's been pretty good. Are we perfect? No. Were we perfect yesterday? Far from it. And in a weird moment, I did not trust those instincts or lean into those instincts. And to be fully honest with you, I still don't know why. I think there were just a lot of bullets flying and we're trying to read the story fast. Found out we could do the interview with Tyler. That was not pre-scheduled, by the way. We put it together, once the story came out, and it was just all too rushed. And I didn't feel prepared to comment on it. I think I even said that in the first 10 minutes of the show when we were having those technical difficulties with Tyler's power outage. But that should have been a warning sign that we shouldn't have been, at minimum, we shouldn't have been going live with it. We should have taped the interview, figured out what to do with it, from that point on. So that's 100% on me. And honestly, what sucks, Greg, is I stayed up way too late last night, rereading the piece, really putting, a fine comb through it. And I feel like we could do a really good show today. We're not going to do it. Maybe we'll get into some things a little bit, but I feel like we could really go through this thing and dissect it all in the way it should have been done to begin with. Two, like many of you, I was suspicious about the motives behind the sources. Now, to be clear, that is not to say that there is, quite frankly, a lot of truth in this story that people are just going to accept even if they don't want to hear that. But it can also be true at the same time that it's fair to question the motives of the sources behind it, and very clearly the sour grapes that sometimes come in this league when, you get fired from a job. I, at one point in the show, did do that. Like, I did address how I thought that in some ways these coaches that got fired were pinning the blame on Caleb in the same way that they felt like Caleb was pinning the blame on him, right? It's pretty much the same thing. But in my question to Tyler, that I thought I was doing that, where I was like, hey, when you thought about this information you're getting and the motives behind the comments you were getting, like, how did you weigh all that with the final products you put out? I'm paraphrasing my own question there. When I went back and listened to it, I was not as confrontational about that as it probably should have been. It in my head, it sounded different than it came out. So if people are like, I can't believe you didn't push back on the sources, I agree with you. So that could have been 100% better. And then the third thing I wanted to address is the touchiest subject of this whole thing, and that is the learning disability that was reported in Tyler Dunn's story. Our game plan going into that episode was to not touch it, because that is a very explosive accusation that really needs to be ironclad from a journalistic standpoint to put that out there. And we were not going to bring it up. Tyler brought it up. And at that point, this is another thing I regret. He brought it up, that should have triggered me to ask a follow-up question, and then asking why he felt like that was good enough information, solid enough information, appropriate information to include in his story. And he may have had a great answer. We don't know, because I didn't ask it. So that's on me. That's on me too. So those are three things that I 100% want to take responsibility for, because we could have done that. I could have done that a lot better. And the other quick thing I wanted to clear up too, before Greg jumps in here, is I am fairly being criticized because I said on the show that I had not read the whole thing. That was a little bit of a misunderstanding, and you can either believe me on this or not, but it's the 100% truth. We know there are three parts to this story. At the time we started recording, I had fully read part 1 and part 2. In my head, I thought there was a part 3 that was already out, and didn't even realize until we were talking to Tyler that he's like, oh, part 3 hasn't come out yet. So that's why I said that. What I said in the show was I haven't even read the whole thing, because I thought part 3 was out there. So I just wanted to clear that up. If your response to that is, well, if you thought there was more and you still did it, then you still shouldn't have done the show. You're right. I 100% agree with you. But I just wanted to communicate that to that point when we started the interview, I had actually read everything that had come out. I just thought part 3 was out, and it wasn't. But again, like I just said, if you're like, well, you still shouldn't have done it if you thought there was more information out there, you're right. You're right. That should have been cleared up ahead of time. So that's what I got for now. I know Greg's got some things to say and some questions, and we'll continue to discuss this, because we heard you guys, and we're going to continue to hear you guys, and we're always going to be authentic, and we're going to we're going to own it when we F up. And I think in this case, we did F up.
Yeah, and I appreciate you kind of starting the show this way and airing out kind of the things that you would have done differently. And I think that fans want to, hear that and know that and kind of understand the process of what took place. Obviously, yesterday I wasn't on the show. I was at Wrigley Field for our Friday 120 club as all this started to transpire, but we all work together in our Bears Slack, as we call it, and communicate. And, I tried to do my best to be a good teammate yesterday and help with whatever I could, as little as I could. But at the same time, I regret not being available to be on the show, because I know how many people want to have different perspectives to offer to an interview like that. And obviously it was very heavy. And I'm not going to lie, like, for me, that's a tough interview for me to want to be in, because there's a fine line between me, kind of hitting them back as the meatball and the voice of the fans, but also, having a line of professionalism and respect to the person that we invited to have interviewed on, and also to, have respect to you, Hoge and Johns and Carm, to make sure I'm not ruining your guys' reputation by being off the wall and trying to be too funny or make light or turn it around and kind of flip it on its head. So I know a lot of fans are like, I wish Braggs was there to fight this guy. And it's like, look, it's an interesting needle to thread. And maybe we can talk a little bit later about some of those things, but I just want to start off my statement by saying, just as somebody that's not just a host at CHGO Sports and CHGO Bears, I'm also a producer. And we take a lot of pride in our content and what we produce. And I know Steven, he's not here right now, but he'd be the first one to tell you how much pride he takes in all of this. But I'll just say this from my standpoint and what we take pride in here at CHGO Sports, and that is your voices, every one of you in the chat, your voices will be heard. Every comment on YouTube, every comment on Twitter, every comment on Reddit, I read pretty much every single one of them. And maybe that's not the best mental health way to do something, but that is part of my job, is to understand how things are being reacted to. And so I read all the stuff. I would say the majority of the people here that worked here read this stuff as well. So you are not being ignored. We are not above you, and we are also not above any criticism. When we make mistakes, we expect you to call them out. Now, we can parse through what was a mistake yesterday and what wasn't, or whether or not the interview should or shouldn't have happened. That's not exactly or necessarily for me to completely decide, but I just want you guys to know your voice will always be heard. And I know on yesterday's show, the super chats were not read, and comments weren't put on the screen. And not going to speak for Steven, but I just will say from my standpoint, there is a judgment call at times that has to be made. And we're not going to put up comments that disrespect our guests. And we also can't put up super chats at times when they are crossing the line in terms of what we can broadcast. So you guys have to understand that. And if you want to put something out and you want your voice heard, we want your voice to be heard as well. But you got to understand the spot we're in terms of being allowed to let you have your voice heard. So every super chat that's going in right now, I'm producing the show, and I will pull those comments up as long as they're appropriate to be broadcasted on our network. So I just wanted to say that first and foremost, I am with the people always. Come to the tailgates, come hang out with me, come to my freaking cul-de-sac, and you'll know that I stand 10 toes down with the fans all day, every day. And we want you guys to know that we'll never act like we're above you, and we'll never not hear your voices when it comes to anything, whether you're rooting us on or you're giving us criticism. That being said, in terms of the story, I just would like to say, and I put my thoughts on Twitter, not everybody's on Twitter, but the truth just lies in the middle. And ultimately what this was to me was anonymous coaches from last year's staff with a response to a Seth Wickersham article 5 months ago, where you have Caleb and his dad who put their names on the record and put some things out there of what they didn't like about what went on last year, and coaches taking exception to that and then responding. Maybe the story comes out regardless. I don't know the timeline of everything, but I just feel like that added fuel to the fire. And I think that was kind of talked about in the article as well. that this was a response to the Seth Wickersham article. And so you've got both sides kind of talking in the media, trying to assign blame for what happened last year. And the truth always lies somewhere in the middle. And you can try to parse through who's right, who's wrong. Ultimately, both sides just did not get along in terms of Caleb's camp versus what the coaches were trying to teach. And now they're all gone and Ben Johnson is here. And everything that we've seen from the moment Ben Johnson has walked in is a guy that's kind of embraced the challenges of what this team needs to overcome from what really haunted them last year. And all I've seen from Caleb throughout training camp is a guy that's embraced the coaching that's coming from Ben Johnson. And it's not just Caleb. Ben talked about it today. The whole team has bought into what Ben Johnson is trying to put in terms of a culture. So I'm excited for this to turn to the Ben Johnson era. And we'll find out ultimately on Monday how this is going to start, but it's only the beginning of the Ben Johnson era. But I've seen a leadership culture change because starts with Ben Johnson and this coaching staff, Antoine Randall and Eric Bieniemy and Dennis Allen and Al Harris, the secondary coach, all the way down to the players and every single one of these guys, all the way to Luther Burden, no block, no rock during the preseason. So I'm encouraged about it. I think we all as Bears fans want to leave 2024 behind in the worst way. It was a 10-game losing streak. Wasn't fun to do those post-game shows every single week. And we wanted nothing more. I want nothing more for this team to be good. And now 2025 is here. And yes, we're 2 days away from kickoff. And we as fans just want to be excited for the season. And when an article like this comes out, it is frustrating for all of us. And yeah, like you said, Hoge, it's one of those things where for us as a network, we want to be with the diehards. We are fans of this team. But at the same time, you have to report the news. And I appreciate you kind of going about maybe how things would have done differently. I mean, I agree with everyone that said, defining it as an emergency podcast shouldn't have been the case. It was just a show. It was an interview. To have Tyler come on, give his time, okay, fine, but not an emergency podcast. And I agree with every single one of you about that. So, in terms of, some of the different questions that I was kind of bridge to you to just kind of keep this conversation going. And we will certainly move to Bears conversation because there was updates from Hallis Hall today and Ben Johnson that we'll get to. But you addressed the dyslexia thing. And I think that's the number one issue at hand for most fans. It's reckless to put that out there without it being substantiated, and how he portrays it in this article. It's hard to say where it actually is confirmed and how many sourced out people can confirm that. And you don't even get Caleb's side of it to address whether he can confirm that or not. And that's, to me, I think all fans are kind of at the point where that's not fair to him. And so I, appreciate you at least addressing that, because that was definitely one of my questions. I think my other ultimate oversight question, because I was reading through with Jack Silverstein, who I have a lot of respect for, and he had a really interesting thread. And he's just one of these guys that's maniacal when it comes to the practices of journalism. He's done some great written work and stuff. And he brought up something about, he said that because Tyler runs a Substack, he doesn't have a boss. So from your standpoint, as somebody that's been through journalism school and had different jobs, from what you read, would that have been able to make it through a publication that has editors and people ahead of him that have to source these things out and make sure it's concrete before it's put into the public, as opposed to somebody that's their own boss?
I mean, look, I can't speak on what type of editorial process there is for Tyler Dunn's website. I can't imagine he's the only one writing up these things and putting them out there. I mean, I think I'm maniacal about typos, as I was even with the headline of the show today. And I think I counted one in the entire piece. So I got to imagine that there's some type of oversight. But to answer your question, because that's just speculation, I I do not believe, and I've already had conversations in the last 24 hours that that would have that type of accusation or revelation, however you want to put it, would have made it into the Athletic or the Chicago Tribune or quite frankly, that's why we weren't going to bring it up on this show, even though it was out there. So because of that same reason, that same thinking. And again, where I missed the mark is once he brought it up, I should have followed up on that, but I can't fully answer that question, Greg, but
yeah, and that's fair. I
am in line with the idea that is, if it's true, it could explain a lot. And it's something that should have been handled a lot differently, as the story suggests, within the organization. But boy, it better be true.
Sure.
I mean,
and certainly not trying to put you on the spot. And I think anybody that's watching this show now can see that we didn't plan these questions. He doesn't know what I'm about to ask him. And I want to try to be a surrogate to people that have brought up interesting points of contention towards this written piece and some that I thought were fair, but not going to force you to speak on things that you can't confirm or deny either, but I appreciate.
Can I say one more thing too? Because I saw in the comments, I just want to make this clear. We were not forced to address this today in any way whatsoever. It was something I was already thinking about this morning. And then when I was talking to Greg this morning, he brought it up as an idea. And I was like, yeah, I think that might be wise. We are not doing this right now because anybody above us or at ALLCITY or CHGO was like, you guys got to go into public relations mode. This is just us being who we are all the time with you guys and being, as authentic as we can, both in the good times and obviously in this case, the bad times.
Yeah. And I think Hoge has learned here in the last 3 years, I'm not afraid to step in the fire, and I'm not afraid of criticism. I'm not afraid of, hey, you guys, I value so much. This has been life-changing for me to work here and go from Brick Lane to this. And I didn't get here without every single one of you that watch this show and take in the content that I've done. So I'm never going to forget you guys, and I'm never going to leave you behind in terms of making sure your guys' voices are heard. So, it's like, to me, because when you go through it and the way he kind of describes some different things, the sourcing of, well, one coach in particular said this, or one, it's just it's very vague. And I understand he can't give up his sources. And again, I think the truth lies somewhere in the middle. It makes it hard for Bears fans to just completely digest and take it at its face value. So it's just one of those things too. So, again, I appreciate everybody because I'm producing and trying to co-host this show. So just trying to make sure my thoughts are properly collected and, I don't go on too far of a tangent, but, I guess my other question is just for you personally, as we're kind of gone through this, I've talked about my challenges. I think it's a tough needle to thread to be the meatball, but also hold a certain line of professional when we're at the combine or you're interviewing Ryan Poles and different things. And so for you, as somebody that's kind of been through this media landscape the last 10, 14, 15 years, however long you've been doing it, and the evolving that you've done and the evolving of media itself, what are the challenges for you, or what do you think that is a struggle, or however you want to define it, to kind of find your way through what we do versus how you have been, kind of as the journalist and somebody that Bears fans look to and trust and, as a leading voice, as somebody that covers the Bears, but also trying to evolve with how, content kind of goes out there now.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty deep question that I could probably spend an hour talking about, but even just coming here and doing a much different show than Hoge and John's, where we have been two journalists who cover the team for a long time, basically just doing our job, objectively covering the team, and then throwing in, sort of our football analysis and sometimes some strong opinion, right? When it gets to the point that, okay, it's probably time to fire Matt Nagy, or it's probably time to fire Matt Eberflus. You certainly do go down that road. And if we're being completely honest, the idea of journalism in sports has blurred a little bit. And I have deeper thoughts on that myself, because as I like to always tell people, we're not covering the White House here. Like, it is football. And I think it's okay that at times the journalistic standards, the goalposts change a little bit, especially when we're talking ball. Okay, when we're going into people's personal issues, and I have these conversations with our team all the time behind the scenes, and obviously a learning disability falls under that category. It's a different conversation. The goalposts are completely different. But that's where, even in the last 3.5 years since I came here, even my job has slowly changed. I mean, now I'm doing a show with a Meatball Bears fan wearing a cool Bears hat right now.
It's a bat. That's a sweet Bears hat.
And sometimes I probably am guilty of caring too much about what my peers in the journalism industry in that media room care about that. When I think overall, with yesterday as an exception, it's been an unbelievable hit, and it's worked. It's worked, and we're really the only ones doing it. And oh, by the way, check any other outlet. They're copying all the things we're doing all the time. And I'm not mad about that. I'm flattered by it. There's, and we all do that. We all take bits and pieces of content that go over well and say, well, how do we do this? How can we spin it for our audience? And that's okay. That's part of the business. But it does. Look, the night before this story comes out, we announced as a company that I'm going to take on an additional role as an NFL analyst for the company and be on PHNX and PHLY and all of our DMVR and DLLS and talk ball with them. That's what I want to do. I mean, I think ultimately, at the end of the day, and that's why I kind of said what I said at the end of the show yesterday. The one thing that does kind of trigger me a lot when stuff like this happens is this idea that clickbait, we're just like trying to dive into it because we could benefit from the negative stories, and it does not help us at all. As I said yesterday, the Bears being great at football and winning a lot of football games going to the Super Bowl would be what's great for all of us here. You as a consumer and us as putting out the show. I'm sure the numbers would be incredible, right? But along the way, we have to be fair to what the reality is and what the stories are. And what's unfortunately, I think, being fully missed in all this part one of this story with Caleb and a lot of sour grapes from people not employed there. I think if you really take the time to read part two, the scouting part, the front office part, and really dissect that not all of those sources in that part of the story are actually former employees that have sour grapes, but actually people inside the building. That's to me, that's the more concerning spinning this forward. Okay, we don't have to worry about 2024 anymore. Ben Johnson's here. He's here to fix Caleb, all that side of it. Okay, if you want to have that, you want to point to the validity of the sources to sour grapes, man. Okay. But there are some hard truths in here that need to, at minimum, even if you're going to set them aside here for a little bit, week one, be in the back of our minds based on how this season goes and what happens going forward. So, and that, I think, unfortunately, is being completely overshadowed in this controversy with Caleb, the talk about Caleb, the way in which we handled this story and all that. So I know I got a little bit off on a tangent there, but my point is that I am in a tough spot sometimes. I'm not trying to make excuses because I need to navigate my way through it as I have for the last 3.5 years of like, all right, when are we talking ball? And when do I actually have to, snap back into, and I got to make phone calls and try to figure out what's real here, keep this relationship going, this and that, because they're two completely different jobs. And sometimes I'm trying to do too much, quite frankly.
Yeah. And the unfortunate part for Bears fans is I'm pretty sure the Seth Wickersham book comes out next week. Like the official, like the Wickersham story came out in May, but the full book actually releases next week. So there's going to be more of this stuff. And I know Bears fans just get tired of this. This is my final point I'm going to say towards the article. And I wanted to make sure I wrote all these things down. I wanted to make sure I didn't forget it. But the other thing I think a lot of Bears fans take exception for, and I do as well, is the defining the way Caleb is sashaying away from something, I think is a gaslighting term. And a buzzword that I think come on, I don't care who you are. You know the backstory with Caleb Williams. You know how people portray him through the media because of his painted nails and everything else. And when you go out there and say he's sashaying away, and I don't even know what glitzy gazelle means, but all I know is it sounds like a shot across the bow. And when you say those things, that's not a coach quote, at least the way I read it in the story. That's his wording to explain how he's walking away. So that's where I think fans start to turn and say, look, you're bringing out the coach quotes and you're laying this whole thing out, but you're also throwing a little bit of juice on it too, sashaying away. And there ain't nothing I hope more that Caleb Williams sashays his way to 4 touchdowns on Monday night, because like, to me, I'd take exception to that if you're going to try to put that out there as well. If these coaches want to put stuff out because they're sour grapes and their reputations took a hit last year and now they've had to take lesser jobs and they're mad because Caleb put some things out in a Seth Wickersham book, so be it. But, adding your own, like as a journalist, I'm not a journalist. So I don't know the right rules. And I talk a lot of crap. And I've said things to my bricklaying bosses that talk, but like, you're writing a story and now you're adding in that for me, I think a lot of fans, including myself, took exception to, and I would have to imagine Caleb did as well. The nice thing about this is, at least from a fan's perspective, when you watch Caleb and the way he's operated through this stuff since his senior year in college, I mean, it's been everything since he won the Heisman. It's every year. It's just turned into this campaign against Caleb Williams, and it's an everyday affair. And I think he's handled it pretty well. And whether there's stuff in that story that are true or not, he's also still very young. And I remember when I was his age. He's not a kid. I know some people say, oh, well, he's still a kid. If you want to define it like that, like when I was his age, yeah, I was still a kid. I think it's disrespectful to call, professional athletes and people that are over the age 18 a kid. Like, they're not your kid. He's a grown ass man, but at the same time, like, he's still young and he's allowed to make mistakes. And if he's done things yet last year that weren't, as mature as they could be, I give him the leeway to mature and develop as a young man. And that's, I think, the perspective that we're looking at. And when you look at how he's handled himself this year, the things he said at the podium, the way he conducts himself at practice and in the preseason games, I see a guy that's actively trying to grow and develop, not just as a football player, but as a person. So that's all I can ask. And I have all the faith in Ben Johnson and this coaching staff. So when you combine it all together, I think it's something that we should be encouraged about. And I'm excited to see how it all looks here on Monday. I know we initially said we were only going to do 30 minutes. That's clearly not.
I knew it wasn't going to be 30.
That's fine. That's fine. There's no ads here in today's show. We are going to get to some Bears conversation, but before we get there, let's just do the super chats now, because there's no point in reverting back to all of this after we talk Bears. So appreciate everybody kind of sitting through all that. There might be people that will never let go of what happened yesterday, and so be it. That is your prerogative. That's your decision. But anybody that's kind of sat here and listened through this stuff, we are also human beings, and we aren't perfect, and we aren't above criticism. And if you guys have gripes, you can always bring it to our doorstep, and certainly mine any day of the week. And if you're wrong or I'm wrong, we can work through it, because I just want to keep doing this as long as I possibly can. And without you guys, it doesn't happen. Period. End of story. So let's start with the first super chat, and that's from Avery, who puts a clown face. So that's
there we go.
There it is. 99 cent from Max, that he didn't have anything. I tried to find a comment that was in there. Here it is. I'm sorry, Max. $1.99 said, there ain't no truth. You just want to pay the bills. And I'll just, Hoge, you speak up anytime you want, but I'll just say, like, what's defined as clickbait and what's not. Like, everything technically falls under the definition of clickbait. We want you to click on our content and watch it. So by that definition, it's clickbait. And we certainly want to pay the bills here, and you guys tuning into our shows, it provides that. So, of course,
but along those lines, Greg, and this is where I'll jump in. I'm the industry secrets here. Positive headlines do way better.
Yep.
We have, I can give you all the data in the world on it. This is always the irony of people doing the clickbait accusations on negative stuff, because my understanding is we've lost 400 subscribers since yesterday. This isn't helping us at all. This isn't paying anybody's bills. So, but we know that when we have to address stuff, that we go back to the end of the live show yesterday before the emergency show that shouldn't have been an emergency show. I straight up said at the end of that show, I didn't want to be doing this.
Right.
We don't want to be doing this. I cannot make that point. No, and we do not benefit from negative headlines, negative shows, nothing. We just don't. So those, I'm sorry, but those accusations are completely baseless.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on to the next one, Max said, the dude, talking about another man's learning ability. And, I just addressed that. So, I'm not sure. And 9.99 from Max says, take the video down if you heard us, bro. Well, if it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. If we delete a video, or if somebody had thought I was going to turn off the comments on this show, all that just looks like duck and smoke, and we're not ducking anything here. We'll stand right in this and hear you out. And, there's a lot of comments from yesterday's YouTube show. It would be in our benefit to delete that video, not just because of you wanting it to get the media part of it out and the reporting, but it would benefit us to hide from all the comments that are going on there. That's not going to happen here, but I understand where you're coming from. Michael Jones says, address the blatant homophobia that was supported. I did just address it here. I know some of these are kind of before the fact of some of the statements we made. And I understand.
Also,
go ahead.
In no ways was that supported on this show. I will take extreme offense to that, quite frankly. Nobody here supported that in any way. And to be honest, that goes back to what I admitted off the top of the show as not being fully prepared and having digested everything. I was not even, I read it. It didn't register to me. That's an oversight by me. Once I saw people point that out later, I was like, oh yeah, that's not good. But in no ways were those words or anything supported on this show at all.
Okay. So I apologize to some of these super chats that are kind of like what before the fact of some of the statements, but Lucas kind of says the same thing where he says, can you address the homophobic remarks he chose to play in the article, such as sashaying, glitzy gazelle? So, that is, I think, just a very valid criticism
100%.
towards this article. Michael Jones, $1.99. Apologize if your question got lost there. H. Taraski. Yeah. Okay. So I guess it's a question to you. If you didn't want to touch the learning disability part of it, why didn't you tell Tyler before you guys got on the air? I guess is his question to you.
Oh, why didn't we? Well, I'm not going to tell him not to bring up something from his reporting.
Right.
I get why you're asking that question, but that's not little inside baseball. We don't meet with our guests ahead of time and say this is off topic or anything. But I am acknowledging that it should have had a follow-up question once he did bring it up. Or it could have been brought up as a question to begin with. So
okay. Zidane is just saying, like, tough part is subscribers will go to them and say, I told you so if the Bears play well. And that's kind of the part, where between reporting, being critical of the team, but also, like, I don't know, I can't speak for you, Hoge. It's basically talking about, like, to me, that's the hard part of this job and what we do in particular. Like, I don't know how much you've kind of embraced coming back to your fandom. I think as journalists, you guys kind of leave that at the door. Whereas for me, I've got to kind of, I'm lucky to kind of come into the industry where I'm, for the most part, being embraced as this person that clearly is a fan that's trying to cover the team as well. And that's where it's like between crossing both roads, what Hoge just said from his perspective earlier, and then mine, I lose a lot of respect from viewers or people in the industry because I'm crossing a line of journalism that no one ever has touched before. That's kind of the evolving part of the media. So, like, to me, like the told you so's when the Bears play well, I can't wait for the Bears to play well. There's nothing that I want more just as a fan, not just because it does well for our business. So, I think that part of it is what it is. Like, if you're going to take yesterday's show as an indicator to be like, hey, these guys are against Caleb, I can only speak for myself, but I certainly am not. There's nothing I want more than the Bears to be good. We've been here 3 years now. This is our 4th season covering the team. And I look forward to a playoff post-game show. That's what I want, because I'm just going to be so happy for something I've waited my whole life for. It's so sorry, not to ramble. Like I said, producing and hosting. So I'm going to get through these. So just bear with me. Appreciate you guys always.
How many more we got? We got a lot.
No, we got a couple more here. I'm trying to read them and not, because like I said, we're not just going to put anything. Scott W 499 says, you guys know the context behind the net drill incident and just let him continue to bash Caleb. Whatever you were.
No, actually, no. I mean, look, you're right, Scott. I mean, look, again, we could have gone through the entire thing but when I went back last night and went through the entire thing with a fine comb, like I already said off the top of the show, I should have been done before we ever did a show. I'm fully admitting that. But that was one of the things I completely rolled my eyes at, that was brought in as more ammo when it's already been, the context has already been explained. And I'm not afraid to do a few more of these, which I touched on in the show yesterday, but it did not do a good enough job. I mean, the bottom line is the coaching last year sucked. It did. And beyond this is not even all about Caleb, but to try to go ahead and then pin it all on Caleb is just as bad as Caleb pinning it on the coaches that he wasn't shown how to film. It's actually honestly worse because you have a group of adults that have been in this league forever versus a rookie, like Greg just said, who's still in his young 20s and still has growing up to do, like we all do. There were issues in training camp last year that had nothing to do with Caleb that were brought to people's attention in that building, in camp, that were ignored until week 1. So like a lot of this stuff doesn't have to do with Caleb. We don't have to rehash everything, but it's like, I do agree. If you read this thing, you're coming off like it's some big excuse and none of these coaches should have been fired. Like, that's ridiculous. Talk about revisionist history. When Shane Waldron was fired, I get that there was some really explosive reporting in there about how he wasn't going to be fired. And then Ryan Poles reportedly basically came in over the top to kibosh a quarterback battle that was about to happen with Tyson Bagent. But Waldron getting fired was not questioned in that locker room. It was celebrated. So then to like put in the story that Caleb's in there dapping people up, I'm sorry, he wasn't. If he was excited that the OC change was happening, he sure as hell wasn't the only one. I think everybody at this point knows that. So then to kind of pin that all on Caleb is crazy. And then same thing with the details with what happened on that final play in Detroit were interesting. But I am going to said it yesterday. We'll continue to say it. Said it on that postgame show the second it happened. Matt Eberflus is the head coach. He can call the timeouts.
Right.
He could have called timeout in Detroit. And honestly, if all these things that these Sour Grapes assistants were alleging in this story are true, then there was plenty of reason to believe the quarterback was going to screw up that whole situation. So you should have been prepared for it as a coaching staff or not put that on him. So like I could do this forever, honestly, with some of this stuff. Well, and I want you guys to all know that I do feel that way about a lot of this stuff in here. And that is when I said at the top of the show, I felt like we could have done a really good show about this if we had taken our time. I truly mean that, because that is where we screwed up by rushing to just interview Tyler and do the deal, because I do feel the same way about a lot of this stuff.
Sure. And, I've said it for 3 years on our shows and a lot of our post-game shows. I needed way more accountability taken by the coaching staff when they stepped to the podium. There was a lot of finger pointing going on that I didn't like. And yes, everyone holds everyone holds a hand in when things don't go right. But when you're a true leader, you just take personal accountability and then trust the person across from you will do as well. I'll say this much, and here's a super chat to bring it to a light. Disgruntled Flus 999 says, the most cowardly thing is the small-time staffers, and this is a quote from Kyle Long, I should say, for the audio listeners. The most cowardly thing in the small-time staffers is the small-time staffers with low ceilings who say big things anonymously about people who don't have ceilings. And he goes on to say, Chicago is lucky to have Caleb. We're lucky to have a staff in place who can develop him. When I showed up to Chicago, I didn't know how to huddle. Aaron Cromer made me an all-pro and one of the most dangerous men on the planet. I couldn't block a pop-up when I showed up to Chicago. I know it's a novel concept for some, but development does still exist. Shout out Francis St. Pierre, who saw my workout in Oregon and stood on table with me in the draft process. Maybe polls is Caleb's Francis St. Pierre. I'm sure some scouts thought I couldn't play, wouldn't develop, mocked the pick. Thank God for the believers. And I thought that was really well said by Kyle Long. He gives perspective about, what a perception of a young player is and then what they deserve to kind of prove to people. So that's about it. We've got a few more. Crystal, obviously a huge supporter of ours, and we always appreciate her. Says, thanks for addressing the situation for those who need it. I understand people have feelings, but being rude and nasty to CHGO is not needed. Love you guys always. It's fine. This is what we're doing. We're airing it all out. And Motor Music Michael says, appreciate you guys covering the team with your knowledge and making it easy to digest, like talking with your friends. We are a community, not just consumers of content. Appreciate the accountability, just as our current coaching staff. Game 1 soon. Let's bear down. Absolutely. Accountability is good for everyone. Taylor Hawk says, thank you for addressing yesterday's show and taking accountability. Die hard since day one and a supporter of Hogan Johns before that. Coach Z says, way to face the music. Accountability. Ben Johnson would approve. Luca says the same thing. Thank you guys for the response. I'm speaking for myself, but you guys addressed, apologized for, admitted to all the right things. Let's get ready for Monday night. Motor Music Michael says, bear with me.
You can do it.
Yeah, I'm trying. Bear with me is Bragg's fantasy football team name. I gave up on fantasy like 3 years ago, so too much going on. Michael Jones. The article alleges Poles knew Caleb had a disability and hid it from the staff. Does that match your knowledge, or will you dive into it further? I think we can save this for the we've talked about it enough here, Mike, and I appreciate the chats and stuff, but we're now 50 minutes into the show, and I think we have addressed some of this stuff. And I think going forward, as everyone gets to reset next week, if anybody wants to kind of bring their thoughts into it, we'll certainly do it there. So
I will say this though, Michael, I don't, yes, obviously we will dig into it further. But there's got to be a sensitivity with that. And also, but I also feel like that's probably not going to completely go away, if that makes sense. It's out there now, and it's, I think, I don't know. We'll see if Caleb addresses it or not. I don't know that I don't know. That's a tough one, honestly, as we talked about earlier in the show. It's a really tough subject, just being completely honest and transparent.
Yep. Nathan J, $5 says, appreciate the entire rundown. Sticking with you guys. We all ain't perfect. Fast and loose business. No question about that. Basket Case coming in with covering stories is not the problem, and saying that's what our problem is patronizing. Not respectfully challenging him at all is the problem. Love you guys still, but that was disappointing. Bear down. So
hang on a second here. Let me read that. Yep. Can I read that? Yep. Basket covering stories is not the problem. Saying that's what our problem is patronizing. I'm a little confused there. If that came across that way at the start of the show, Basket Case, it was not an accusation that I think I've addressed what the problems were, and I totally agree that not respectfully challenging him at all was the problem. That's what I think I addressed off the top. I was just making it clear because there's a ton of comments out there like we should ignore this story because it's right before kickoff, or you guys are supposed to be fans of the team. So how do you give this the light of day? Like, we're not going to ignore hard truths that come through along the way, because especially for this franchise, we've seen things kind of get swept under the rug and then turn into major problems down the line. And I think it's a huge reason why this team hasn't won a Super Bowl in 40 years. So I get what you're saying, Basket Case, but I hope it didn't come off that way off the top. And I feel like it's been, I totally agree with not challenging him was a problem.
Well, and as you pointed out, there was things that we heard through camp last year and then through the season on both sides of the Wickersham article and then what we heard or read in this article. And when you parse through it all, I mean, even Taylor Dow had stuff at the end of last year reporting on some of the stuff that Caleb's camp had issue with in terms of how he was being coached up. But as I've said before, without knowing and being directly in that room, I just believe that the truth lies somewhere in the middle on both sides of the complaints and trying to assign blame of what went on last year. And I just choose to try to leave it at that and keep an open mind to all of it. But you can't say that everything is concrete, substantiated just because it's put down into a written article either. You have to kind of, like you said, Hoge, kind of understand how the sourcing and the agenda behind it at times and take it at what it's worth. And that's kind of where I take it as a consumer. Then we'll just leave it with this. Logan Trent had a comment in the chat that said, as someone with dyslexia, I was really disappointed with the whole armchair diagnosis BS. It and how it was mentioned is what leads to stigma and makes it harder for those who do know they have it. So, I think that's kind of what kind of points out the levity, or not levity isn't the right word, the gravity, I should say, of when you put things out there like that and just making sure that it's confirmed by everyone. And I honestly think Caleb deserved to stand up and have his say in that as well. So, so I think that pretty much wraps it up. Anyway, guys, Hoge, you can make the judgment call here. We're 50 minutes in.
Is there one more from Windy City Twins?
Yeah, he says, Hoge, you mentioned industry secrets here. Positive headlines do way better. Then you said you can give data to back it up. Is this indeed true, or is it more accurate? The opposite is true due to the negativity bias.
I don't know what that means by negativity bias, but I mean, yes, unequivocally. Thank you for the super chat, though. I'm not sitting here lying. I mean, Greg, you can back me up on that. Like, yes. I mean, you could go back to training camp. Caleb Williams had phenomenal day. Is going to get more clicks on YouTube than Caleb Williams threw 4 interceptions and was terrible. It just is. I don't.
Yeah.
I get that some people just aren't. It's fine. It's okay. We're not going to.
It cuts both ways. I mean, our highest viewed show ever was when Eberflus was fired. Now, some people might look at it as a celebration podcast.
Yeah, but that's exactly why that's different, because but that's actually the crux of this. That was still, even though it was a negative story, covering what the fans wanted. Right? So my point in all this is not really versus like positive story versus negative story, but it's like doing a show or writing a story that's not something people want to hear or read is not going to do as well. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you, Basket Case. I appreciate you. And again, I think most of your criticisms we completely agree with here at CHGO. So I hope that came across.
Yeah.
In terms of, I don't know, do people want to hear Bear stuff or not?
Well, that's up to you, man. I mean, we went way longer into this, but at the same time, the stuff I think is fair to address, and there it is. We did it, and I'm always around if anybody ever wants to reach out to me in terms of having because it's a deeper discussion that can go 4 hours in terms of coverage and the psychology behind different things and what's going on with this Bears team. It's just it's a lot to unpack. So everybody that kind of sat through this, obviously, if you're somebody that appreciates Bears content, not just ours, and so you wanted to hear from us, and that's what we did. So I have zero regrets when it comes to that. But yes, there were things that happened at Hallis Hall today. That is the headline of the show when it comes to TJ Edwards. So, I mean, do you want to kind of bring a clip up with Ben Johnson speaking to the media about the injuries, and then kind of move it forward from there, and then wrap this thing up?
Yeah, if you got that one about the injury updates, and we can talk about the injury report, which is out, and I think we also have some sound from Ruben Hyppolite to share with you too, because I think he's going to be a big part of this game all of a sudden now on Monday night. So, Greg, you got that from the head coach?
This is about a little over a 2-minute clip, and it starts out where Ben was asked what his expectation of Caleb Williams is, and then after that goes into the injury update. But the initial question was, what are your expectations for Caleb Williams on Monday night?
Win the football game.
In terms of his own performance.
All that matters is us winning the game. So that's all we need to see from our quarterback, from our offense, from our defense, from our special teams. We're just, all we're focused on is what do we need to do to win the game.
Do you expect TJ Edwards to be available, or does it look like he's likely out?
He will be doubtful.
What about Jalen? What type of designation would Jalen have?
We will see on that one.
What has he been able to do the last couple of days, or yesterday in practice?
In Jalen?
Yeah.
The number of reps are increasing every single day for him.
And as you've established your working relationship with Caleb, how do you ensure that his commitment level, both here and away from here, meets your expectation?
I think it. We like to single out the quarterback. It's everybody in this building. We're professionals, and this isn't, everyone likes to think professional football. It's still a game, it's still a kid's game. It is, but this is also how we feed our families, and we're dependent on each other to get that job done. And so I'm grateful for the guys in the locker room. They all embrace that mindset. Everybody in this building, certainly when I see them, they're dialed in, they're locked in. I can't say enough good things about our whole roster from top to bottom. I've been thoroughly impressed from the springtime through training camp here into week one, how locked in they are. So, that's the expectation is we're all in this thing for each other. We don't want to let our buddies down, and that's the thought.
With Caleb specifically, how do you get that message across from, I guess, January until now, just to make sure that he understands everything that you need?
For all young players in this league, you try to show the runway of what a professional looks like. And you detail, this is what we need, this is where we stay in. Early this week, I kind of highlighted on a normal game week, day after the game, this is what we should be looking at. Going into a Wednesday, this is what the cut-ups we should be looking at. A Thursday, Friday, blah, 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 and so it's helpful for young players, I think, to see what that looks like. And more than anything, when you have a group of veterans like we do, they show us the way. And more so than the coaches having to lead, the players, the teammates, if they can show us the right way, the better off we'll be in a hurry.
So, Greg, kind of indirectly, can we also queue up my question to him about that leadership, what he was just talking about, the veterans showing the way? Because, as much as people are annoyed, don't want to hear about that story anymore, but that was a big part of it too, right? Something we've talked about a lot this offseason, something you've talked about a lot this season, about how the veteran leadership in that locker room wasn't good enough. And so I followed up when I heard him say that, just in what ways has he seen this leadership start to materialize and be better this year, essentially?
Yeah, just so you know, it is loading, but
Okay.
So we will pull that up here in 2 seconds. But yeah, then you also had the Jalen Johnson and TJ Edwards updates there, where it does feel like Jalen Johnson is going to play on Monday. Is that the impression you get?
Yeah, so he's officially listed as questionable, but Ben saying that the reps have increased throughout the week, I think, is a good sign. That might really be one that's a game time decision. I mean, there are most times I feel like we know, okay, this guy's either going to play or he's not, even if he's listed as doubtful, or sometimes even when they're questionable, you're like, yeah, he's probably going to play. There are some times where they have to go through a pregame warm-up and really see how they're feeling, and the trainers and the doctors need to make a decision on if the reward is worth the risk. And I think that might end up being the case here with Jalen Johnson.
Okay, so going back to your question in terms of leadership, it is ready. So again, like you said, this is you asking Ben Johnson about the leadership here.
Ben, when you talk about the leaders, players showing the way, in what ways have you specifically seen that already?
Well, we certainly, I think the guys that our locker room voted as captains, that certainly sent a message, at least to me, who they are looking at the most, you know? And so guys like Tooney and Grady and Byard, I mean, I like Caleb's along there, Cairo, all five of those guys, they're great examples of guys that are doing the right thing, not just since we started the season, but throughout the offseason, the whole time. And to have that respect of your peers is a huge deal. So I think we have a number of guys that are committed to doing it the right way. I think that was the vision of bringing in some of the veteran leadership that we did, that we acquired, whether through free agency or trades. I mean, I could go down the road, but you know, guys like Jonah Jackson, Drew Dahlman on offense. I've been thoroughly impressed with the guys that have been here, like Cole Kmet and DJ Moore. On the defensive side of the ball, I think Montez Sweat has been absolutely crushing it from the time I stepped in the building until now. Dio is a true pro. I mean, it's on and on, and I could list the entire locker room almost, because it's just been really impressive how these guys go about their business.
Yeah, a lot of names there. So, you know, I think we just got to hope that that's really happening. And my guess it is after last year, because it seemed like a lot of those players wanted that, and so hopefully that veteran leadership is coming through. We'll see. I mean, the adversity, we always talk about it. Until you start losing some football games, you don't really know how everybody's going to respond to the adversity, and that's always, I think, the key in most football seasons and really in most sports. So let's. Before we get out of here, I do want to play Ruben Hyppolite too, because there's, and I don't know the answer to this, but TJ Edwards probably not going to play. He's listed as doubtful, didn't practice all week. I think that's one of the ones where we know what's happening there. So Ruben Hyppolite will see the field. The question then becomes, you know, who's the Mike, who's the Sam, who's the Will, and all that. With his speed, it wouldn't completely shock me if, you know, he ends up actually being the Will over Noah Sewell or Tremaine Edmonds. I mean, I don't know how they're going to handle that, to be honest, because once we got to practice this week, we weren't allowed to watch team portions. So it'll be super interesting to watch. What I do know is that Ruben Hyppolite will be much more than a special teamer in this game, and there's going to be some key plays that he's involved with defensively and is probably going to have to make some plays. So we had a chance to talk to him in his locker today at Hallis Hall, and this was that conversation.
I'm ready for it. I've been preparing for this moment. You know, just taking my opportunities as they come. Hopefully, you know, doing the most with them. So I'm excited for it.
Did you face McCarthy?
I did, yep.
What about him jumps out?
Good player. Very creative with the ball in his hands. Obviously knows, you know, whatever scheme he's in, he's very aware of where to go with the football. So we're going to be facing a great quarterback. So it's going to be nice to play against him again.
I was going to say, is it an advantage for you that in your first NFL game, the quarterback is somebody you have familiarity?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I played him before, so I kind of know his tendencies a little bit just by playing him. But I wouldn't say it's an advantage. Obviously, he's matured and he's grown within his craft. So still got to, you know, prepare for him.
Ruben, what have you learned on film study about Aaron Jones and Jordan Hudson?
Both physical backs. Both can catch the ball out the backfield, speed, obviously. So just got to find ways to contain those guys and get them on the ground.
Is there, I guess, maybe like a foreshadowing here? It's a young quarterback. This is his first start. They're probably going to want to lean on the run game. Like, how do you see what your role could be Monday night in stopping their offense?
Just stopping and run, doing my job. Nothing really much more to it. But, you know, like I said, they're going to, you know, try to run the football. So just got to stop it.
Ruben, what kind of adjustments did you go through in training camp? Just pads go on, you get the grind of the team days to help get you prepared for this moment to be able to play as a rookie in your first game.
Yeah, I mean, it's football at the end of the day. At Maryland, we had, you know, similar practice styles, how we would go full pads 2 days out the week and just grind out like that. So, I mean, this is not something that I'm not used to. So really no major adjustments, just going out there playing football, doing my job, and then, catching up to the speed of the game at this level.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, the speed of the game. Was that something you had to adjust to at all, or was it, I mean, you're pretty fast. Did you feel like it was all right?
It was all right. Obviously, that comes, playing fast comes with knowing what to do. So, just going through that, iron those things out during camp. So that was good for me. So now it's just time to go play.
Sorry if you already answered this, but with TJ hurt, what kind of opportunity is this for you, and how ready do you feel for it in week 1?
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. Like I said, first NFL game, so a lot of excitement. I'm just ready, to go out there and handle my business, do my job, and just help the team win. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it's about.
What role has TJ played in getting you ready for this game?
Great leader. Always making sure that that I know what I'm doing within the scheme. He's always been helping me out since OTA, so it's like a big brother to me. So he helped me out a lot.
Are you comfortable playing all 3 linebacker spots, or are you kind of zeroed in on one spot in terms of responsibilities?
No, definitely. I'm comfortable playing all 3. I've learned all 3. So wherever they need me, I'm going to play.
Monday Night Football, bright lights, prime time, NFL debut. You get butterflies?
It's just football.
Yeah.
So obviously a great opportunity. A lot's going to be going on, but at the end of the day, it's just football. They're going to spot the ball. We're going to play. So.
And another rookie, too, Kyle Manungai on the other side of the ball. He's good to go. He was full go today. He does not have an injury designation for Monday's game, and the Bears did not make any roster moves. And the head coach said straight up today that he trusts that guy, and that's pretty rare to say for a rookie. So I had a chance to also talk to Kyle Manungai today after Ben made those comments, and we are going to bring those to you, a little one-on-one interview on Monday's pregame show. So we hope you'll join us for that. I think
I'll be at the tailgate for the pregame.
Yeah.
Show. So for those of you who want to join me at the tailgate, we'll catch the interview there.
Yep. And we hope you're there. Appreciate everybody for being here today for this show. I understand the comments are still mixed.
3
yes,
more
Greg.
super chats to get through too. Said Disgruntled Flu says, as Hoge said, the best revenge is winning. If Tyler editorialized for clicks, Caleb has 17 games to achieve poetic justice. R4BA says, there are a few journalists I trust more than Hoge. Mistakes happen. We will all be holding hands at the Super Bowl parade.
I hope so. That'd be great.
Can't wait for that.
Thank you, man.
Anthony Bork says, still nothing but love for CHGO and the boys. Understand these boys got a job to do. Let's turn the page on 2024 narratives. Monday Night Football cannot come soon enough. Bear down. So there it is. That's all we got in terms of super chats. And hopefully I tried to bring up as many chats in the we did our best today. I'm sure the explanation wasn't perfect for everybody. The show wasn't perfect for everybody. At the end of the day, the goal was to just be authentic for, and give you guys as best we could, our perspective and just be, let you guys know how we feel and make your voices heard. So I hope we achieve that in some capacity, but we are excited for Monday. I know I am.
Yeah, I think I think I speak for everybody at this point, whether you're riding with us or you're out completely. Regardless, let's just get to Monday night. I think everybody's ready for football to be played. And for the record, not that I think this needs to be said, but I'm still Team Caleb here. I've been riding this train from the very beginning. I think there are some fair things to be worried about, concerned about, and I think there's a lot of things that he has the power and support right now at Hallis Hall and with Ben Johnson to overcome and have a really good year too. So hopefully that starts Monday night in a very tough test against Brian Flores. I've said this a few times. It's like taking a midterm in week 1. It's a tough test, but we'll see how it goes. And there's certainly there's a very good chance the Bears win this game. And hopefully that's what we're talking about Monday. So we got tailgate Monday. We got a pregame show Monday, 6:00. And we got a postgame show the second the game's over. And I can't wait to be talking about whatever's happening in that game, football-wise, good or bad.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, appreciate everybody. We'll see you on Monday at the tailgate. Starts at 2:30. You can still get your tickets at allchgo.com/events. Come on by to the corner of Wabash and Cermak. We'll be having some fun there. Pregame starts at 6 o'clock.
I think we'll just go 6. Why not?
6 o'clock. Game starts at 7:15, and then we got post-game show immediately, and then the brick by brick after show after the post-game show. So 2 post-game shows and a pregame show and a tailgate all for you on Monday. So appreciate every single one of you guys hanging out with us here today, and enjoy your week 1 NFL Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your college football here tonight. We'll see what the Packers and Lions do. I'll be in Wrigleyville tomorrow. If any of you guys are out in town, I'll be in Wrigleyville tomorrow watching NFL games at some different local pubs. So if you find me, come say hi. Maybe I'll buy you a drink. Other than that, you got anything else, Hoge?
No, let's get rolling here to Monday. Cannot wait. Enjoy the football, and we will talk to you either at the tailgate or at the pregame show, 6 o'clock. We'll see you on Monday.
We all silly like the mayor.